In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Clergy Lady Congress that I had gone to this past week, which was from Wednesday until yesterday afternoon in St. Louis, hosted by the Church of St. Nicholas, which is really located in the downtown St. Louis area. It's a very unique parish setting in the fact that when you walk into their complex, there's a hallway, and then there's a candle stand where you can purchase your candle, and then you have to walk up a flight of stairs to go to the narthex, and then the entire church is on the second floor. And it seats about 400 people, and it's a beautiful church. I know that in our church we have, in the Orthodox Church, typically we have Byzantine iconography, but I also happen to be a fan of Renaissance iconography, and in the apse of the church on both sides was two beautiful Renaissance icons of St. Peter and Paul, which I have yet to see those anywhere before. But it was a beautiful church that was hosting the conference. I attended, as well as our Pete Condos, who is on our parish council, is also in our choir. And the Choir Federation also had their retreat that weekend, or the middle of the week through the weekend, as well as the Family Synaxis retreat, which was happening as well. Now I figured I would tell you a little bit about what happened at the Clergy Lady so that you understand what happens and so that you don't come back to me and say, what's this I hear about whatever. So you heard it from here first. One of the main parts of the Clergy Lady Congress was the acquisition of land for a diocese or metropolis retreat center and a camp as well. They've been looking for several years, and it's always been the dream of the Metropolitan to have an area where there would be a camp for the children, as well as a retreat center, as well as a facility that would house and be able to hold conferences. And after several years of looking, they found a piece of property in right outside, 7 miles over the border into Wisconsin and 5 miles west. So it's right by Racine, Wisconsin, and it's 137 acres. There is a 4-bedroom home on the premises. There is a 2,000 square foot log cabin. There is an in-ground pool. There's an outdoor pool. There's animals. There's a barn. There's a garage. There's water. There's all kinds of crops. And actually, the person who tends the land had built a little miniature train, which is kind of a marvel, I think. A little miniature train that will carry 16 adults all the way around the perimeter of the property. And they have been looking for some time for land that they could develop. It also has 2 ponds. It has an 8-acre pond, and then it has a lake that's even larger on the area that actually adjoins to the next parcel of land. It comes complete furnished with the home furnished, all the animals, as if that's what they were looking for. ATV, all-terrain vehicles, golf carts, boats, pretty much everything as it sits for $2.3 million. Now, if you think about what you paid for your house and think about the amount of land alone, it's a very good deal. And the reason it was acquired at such a low cost is because there was a lot of connections. As they say, Greeks have connections. You talk long enough and you're related to the person you just met 2 minutes ago. And that's really why they were able to get the land for the price that they did. So that is in the works right now, which is something that will be wonderful because we too, all the churches in the metropolis will be able to use the property for whatever they need to as the years go on. Also, another thing that's coming out is in your liturgy books, there's a creed and a little pamphlet, I believe, that's glued in your book. Finally, after so many years of the Archdiocese and a lot of complaints back and forth, there is a standardized Greek and English translation of the creed and the Lord's Prayer that will be, we'll purchase them, and every church in the entire Archdiocese will follow that translation of the creed and the Lord's Prayer, which might be a little different from what we're using, but will also create a standardized translation that everyone will be able to follow. If you've ever been to another church, you always say the creed with trepidation because you never know how it's going to go towards the end. The beginning, everybody's kind of got it together, but at the end, there's a change of words. So this creed and Lord's Prayer will be available in our pews as soon as we receive them from the Archdiocese. A staggering number that I found from the statistics. I like to hear all the statistics of the Archdiocese, but this was really a staggering number, I thought. There was 17 new clergymen in the Archdiocese in the year 2004. 17, which means they were deacons, maybe some of them are still deacons, and priests. That's all that has come into the Archdiocese. Now, out of retirement, or either changing professions, either dying or being removed, 37 clergymen, 37 priests came out of the Archdiocese in 2004. So that's 20 priests down. Now, if you figure there's 500 and something parishes, now you look and you say, well, where are they going to come from? That's 20 last year, how many this year, how many the next year? And the average age of a priest is 55 years old. So it's not getting any younger. And at one point in the church, the average age of priests were way down in the 20s because there was this big crop of priests that were coming out of high school and becoming clergymen at a young age. And now all of them who have been in these parishes for many, many years are now at retirement age, or they're either passing away. And to give you an idea, in the medical plan of the Archdiocese, the average or the majority of those enrolled in the medical program are between the ages of 45 and 64. So every year that number keeps getting worse and worse. What does that mean to us in the church level? Well, I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But what I wanted to talk about too was another staggering figure that, and as we approach our Stewardship Sunday, I want to at least put this as a seed so that you can understand where the Archdiocese and where we as a parish are headed as far as some of the financial areas of the church. With the Tsunami Relief Fund and with the Hurricane Katrina Fund, which were designated funds in the Archdiocese, throughout the Archdiocese they raised over $1,250,000 for those two funds. However, our Archdiocese is approximately $5.4 million in debt. Now, if you think those were trays that were passed 1 week, 2 weeks maybe in the parish, and well, probably three, probably two for the tsunami and one for the Hurricane Katrina. And the tsunami was $750,000 and Katrina was $500,000, in case you were wondering how that broke out. But there's $5.4 million in debt in the Archdiocese. Why is that? Not because they're frivolously spending money, but because the parish contributions are down. Now what that means is every one of you in this church, no matter what you pledge, $111 is the amount of money that we as a parish council, have to send to the Archdiocese for you, to cover you. So if you think of your pledge, if your pledge was $50 or if it was $5,000, $111 we have to pay for you every year. And you might say, well, that's a lot of money. But if you do the breakup, that $67 of that $111 remains at the Archdiocese. So for $67, here's what is available to you. The Archbishop, all the clergy and the staff, St. Basil's Academy, Holy Cross and Hellenic College, St. Michael's Home for the Aged, St. Photios Shrine, the National Young Adult Department that we have, as well as all the other ministries of the Archdiocese, cost each one of us $67 a year. What comes back to our metropolis, our diocese here in Chicago, is $27 out of your $111. So it's not an additional, that's out of the $111. What does that pay for? That pays for the Metropolis House, that pays for the Diocese Center that we will be purchasing, the camp, as well as the clergy, the chancellor, the metropolitan, the youth ministries, and all the other foundations and ministries that have been established by the metropolis of Chicago. So $27 out of your stewardship that you give. However, what they have seen, and the Archdiocese Stewardship Director has brought to the attention of many of the clergy, is that many people think by giving $250 to the church for the year, or even $500 to the church for a year, they are doing the church a favor. However, this is not the case, as we see from a national level as well as the church level. If you, in 2 weeks, you will see our budget of our church that has been skimmed down significantly in order to meet the budget, because the rising costs of just maintenance, if you look at what you're going to pay for heating for this coming fall, is dramatically more than what it was last year. However, on an archdiocese level, not only at our parish, but across the archdiocese, they are seeing that funding from the parishes is typically sought by outside sources and not shown as the burden and the responsibility of each steward. What does that mean? That means exactly what we're doing this weekend. We have the Fall Food Festival as a means to bring revenue into the church because of the fact, not for supplementary projects, not to pay down the mortgage on the church, not to build a larger church, not to bring in a pastoral assistant or even a second priest, but to merely break less than even in our budget that you will see for 2006. It's not because we want to, it's because, unfortunately, we have to. And this is our second festival of the year. $250, $365 as we've set as a minimum for our stewardship through the parish council is not enough to fund this church. And many people say that Father always goes up and asks for money, but I don't want to have to ask for money. I would hope that you would just give what you feel in your heart that you receive from the church. The church is 24 hours a day open for you at any call. And many of you have called me at odd hours of the night with issues, or there's somebody's passed. And who has been there? This church has been there and will continue to be there. However, we have to look and see what is it giving to us and what are we giving to the church. Our stewardship is not nearly where it should be in every sense of the word. Time, talent, and treasures. It's not where it should be. We have programs. We have a part-time pastoral assistant because there's, as you see with the demographics of the clergymen coming in and going out and assistants in the archdiocese, we're at a shortage for help, but we're also at a financial shortage for help, as you will see in the 2006 budget. So what is it? Why is it that the archdiocese, with 3 Sundays of passing a tray, can raise over $1 million? Well over $1 million. And those trays that we passed here, that we forwarded on to them, were some of the largest trays we've ever collected in this parish. Why? Because you were moved. You felt the responsibility to help others throughout the world. You felt it in your heart to dig into your wallets, to write checks, and to say, I feel for those people. Why? Because you saw it on TV. You saw flooding. You saw flooding at the tsunami. You saw flooding in New Orleans. We sent shoes. We sent almost 150 pairs of shoes because you were moved. I pray that you're moved to help this church, because if we are not moving forward, as the Metropolitan said, we are moving backwards. If we stand still, we will tend to regress. And this year, for 2006, I feel as a community we have regressed because we have had to cut out things that I feel we need in this church. And we had to cut that out because we haven't seen the response from each and every one of you. What is it that we're asking this year? And I will be talking about this for the next 2 weeks, is for you to step up and take the burden of responsibility of the community for yourself. not to just wait for somebody else to do it, not to wait and pray that it's good weather in Memorial Day weekend so that we can do well at the festival, or to pray to God that the Bears game today for some reason is canceled so people will come and eat here at the church, or to pray that someone will want to rent our hall, or to revert back to the times when we had the Montessori school here, when at your request as a community, we removed them because of their growth and because of them taking over the building. We removed them, but we didn't replace the funds that they had sent in. I don't like asking for money, no matter what you might think. I want you to live the life in the church. And living the life in the church means to participate in the programs, to give of your time, and the money should be something that you should just want to freely give. I shouldn't have to ask. No one should have to ask, because to whom much is given, much is required, as Christ says to us. So what has been given to each and every one of you? That is for you to say. But what is required? It's not even 10%, as we see in the gospel. Because when Christ is challenged, we see that there's a rich man who comes to Christ and he says, well, I do this. I give 10%. And I do this. And I fast. And I pray. And I go to the temple. And I follow all the rules. And what does Christ say? He says, then sell everything and give it to the poor. He doesn't say, give 25%. Go do this more. He says, give everything. And if we give everything, not just financial, if we give of our lives and our hearts to God, then we will receive much more than we could ever hope. And some of you might be saying, well, if I give $1,000 to the church, what am I going to get back? Isn't that a lot of money? How many of you have memberships to health clubs and do not go? How many of you have premium cable services and don't watch all the movies on the TV? How many of you have other expenses that you could gladly cut out, but we choose not to because we are moved for those things more than we are moved for our parish? There's so much that we are called to give. We are called to give of our life, our time, our talents, our treasure to God. And what does He give back to us? We don't even know until we give. And the reason we don't know is because if you look at the gospel reading where Christ says, what do we have to eat? And they said, we can't feed all these people. We can't do it. And He said, why can't you do it? And they said, because we only got some fish and we got some bread. That's it. That's all we have. And it's not enough. You look out and you say, that's not enough. You might even look at yourself and say, what do I have to give? It's not enough to do everything. And Christ proves us wrong because He takes the fish and He takes the loaves of bread, and what does He do? He multiplies them. He feeds everyone, and there's excess left. Everyone from the little that they offered or the greatness of what they offered for that day, they gave it to God and said, God, you take it and you feed us. And what did He do? He fed everyone, and there was spare left. They didn't have enough baskets to pick up the leftover food. That is how God takes what we give Him and makes more. It's not what we think He's going to give us. It's what He has in store for us. But we need to offer to Him in a way that is free, that is out of love, and is bearing the responsibility of the church. If you look at some of our Protestant faiths that we so much see, and sometimes we even have a cold shoulder to them, whether it's the mega churches or whether it's Lutherans or even Catholics sometimes, I think as Orthodox we can tend to become critical of them, unfortunately. However, the national average of giving in the Protestant faiths is 9%. And we are less than 1% in our church. 9% or less than 1%. That's a staggering figure, I think, as well. If you look at some of the other churches in the area, and one that I always marvel at, not because of their theology, but because of their administrative qualities, is the Church of Willow Creek in South Barrington, where they have a budget of $1.2 million a month. And when you see what they gave from their own collections, from their church, to the disaster victims, it's 6 figures and up. Now that's not to say, well, they have it all figured out and they know something more than we do. That's not the case. We have it. We have the Holy Spirit. We have God within us. We're sealed with the Holy Spirit, as we say at baptism. We have the knowledge of God. We have the sacraments. Everything is open to us. But are we open to giving back to God? Did you know, if you really dug into yourself and said, I'm going to give a percentage of my time, I'm going to give a percentage of my talents and my treasures to God, that we would not even have to pass a tray in this community. We would have candles free for the taking in the back. We wouldn't have to pass a tray. We wouldn't have to nickel and dime you. We wouldn't have to say it's $5 for this or $10 for that, or you wouldn't have to go into the hall and feel like it's the marketplace and you had to buy this or support that or buy candles for this. We could fund absolutely everything in this community. And the only solution to that is with you. That's the only way we can change that. It has been done in communities. There are communities in the Archdiocese that do not pass trays because their members are stewards in every sense of the word. We can get to that point. And you might say, how can that be possible, Father? How can we come to church and the only thing that we receive from the tray or put into the tray is our prayers, our name list. And the only thing we take out is Andidaron and Holy Communion. It can be done. And hopefully you will respond so that it will be done. Not for our will, but for God's will. You know, this year, as we were doing preliminary budget meetings for our parish here, there was one thing that is balancing the budget that we took out of the budget, and that was the full-time pastoral assistant. And as we see here in the church, this church keeps growing, but our personnel keeps shrinking. What do I mean by that? Deacon Vasilios, who has been here for many years, is now serving the Church of St. Nectarios because the priest there has been assigned to another parish because of a shortage. Father Cavadillas now is assigned to DeKalb, where he was many years ago. And what is happening? This is it. This is it. These are the 2 hands that are going to give you communion. These are the 2 hands that are going to do the ministry in this church. And when I was at the Clergy Laity Congress, and priests were asking me, how many people do you have, how many parishioners and stewards do you have in your church? And I was saying, well, it's between 450 and 500. And they looked at me and they said, well, who's helping? And I said, I don't have anybody. And they said, well, you're over the brink of where you need help. And I know that. And that's why we had scheduled for a pastoral assistant. But because of the response in stewardship, or the lack thereof, we cut it out for 2006. We removed a person that could minister to you because the response from all of you is not where it should be. I don't want to ask for money. I want to give 110% of myself, and I want you to be able to be in the position where we can offer more and more to you that the church is offering every day. I pray that you respond with the programs, by coming to the programs that we offer, by sharing some of your talents that you have, and helping us with whatever we have in the community. Many of you have brought invaluable and priceless connections to this community for many different things. But one thing that we need to look at, and one thing that we're also concerned about at the General Assemblies, is the finances of the church. And the finances of this church can be fixed in one sweep of a pen. One sweep of your pen, they can be fixed. we can have a radically different approach to our life here in the church, by the ministries that we offer, and by how you are approached throughout the year. We don't need to nickel and dime. We need to become true stewards. And the next few weeks, I want you to think about, to earnestly think about, what can you give to the church? Not till it hurts, but till it feels good. And many times we don't even scratch the surface of that in anything, whether it's our liturgical attendance or whether it's our ministry attendance. This week we'll be mailing to you the outline for the General Assembly, as well as the preliminary budget and some other items that are in there, but also the stewardship card. And on November 20th, we will be asking for your pledge. And I hope and pray that it sinks in that we can't rely on others. The people sometimes that we look down on, unfortunately, as Orthodox. The Kseni, as so many people say, or they're not Orthodox, so they don't have it together, is an unfortunate perception that many times I hear from people. But yet, they're the ones that are supporting our community. They're the ones that are paying our bills through the festivals. I'm not saying the festivals are bad, but I think the festivals should take us a leap ahead instead of a giant grasp trying to break even, which we are not doing. So I pray that you think about these things and read the stewardship card, pray over it, pray of what God means to you, and step up and be a Christian and a steward in every sense of the word, with your treasures, your time, and your talents. Amen.